that was derived from a substance. But I found and I learned in recovery that, you know, my disease of addiction was rampant long before I ever put substances into my body. My behavior before the substances took the place of that predictable feeling, because I was unable to experience feelings on a full range. I didn't know how to experience feelings. So when I would feel a certain way, whether it be good, bad, or indifferent, I would use drugs.
Did you say you were 12 years old?
When I first started putting substances in my body, yes.
And what was the first substance that you put in your body?
So I started smoking cigarettes.
Cigarettes.
And
many times persons will say that the gateway drug is marijuana. But I was talking with an individual the other evening who is in the process of he's a newcomer. And we were talking about smoking, and I was sharing with him that when I started this process some 24 years ago, that I wanted to quit smoking as well as stop using the drugs that I was using. And thank God I had a sponsor. He told me not to worry about the smoking at that time. Just take it one day at a time, one drug at a time. And so I had shared with him that many people do not realize it, but cigarettes can be a gateway drug. And I said to him, I bet you started smoking before you ever picked up a joint. He said, sure, he did. Is that what happened with you?
well, yeah, because I didn't associate any of it, because I didn't see the problem like you spoke about. It was so funny how you mentioned the first step in identifying the problem in order to address it, because, you know, I didn't see any kind of problem and number one, I thought smoking was good because it made me look responsible, as funny as it sounds. Being young, I saw older people do it.
It does sound funny, but that's the way they advertise it, to make you look cool. It's the first time I ever heard anyone saying that smoking make you look responsible, but I think that a lot of times young people may think that it makes you look more mature.
Right, yeah.
So did your dad smoke, mom smoke, or somebody in the house smoke?
Yeah, it was my uncle. He smoked, and among other things. But I was just drawn to it, man. You know, I was just drawn to it, and real shortly after that, I was in middle school, and I don't know why. I just knew about drugs, and I guess it was, you know, I picked it up subconsciously growing up, seeing it when I was young. But I started selling prescription medication that I had taken from my house to kids at school.
And how old were you when you were doing this?
About 13.
13 years of age, that you found that you could make a business out of selling prescription drugs. Now, whose prescription was it?
It was actually my girlfriend at the time. It was her mother's. Her mother had gotten into a car accident, and my girlfriend had told me this. And I don't know why, I was just like, take her medication and bring it here so I could see it. You know, she brought it to school, and I seen what it was, and I did that, and then I started taking pain medication from the house.
How old are you, Tom?
Just turned 25 on last Tuesday.
25. So we're talking about 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And you were going to a local school here, or where were you at the time?
Oh, I was in middle school here when it first started. I got expelled from middle school for selling drugs, and my dad was in Indiana at the time, and I went to Indiana. I was there for only about a year and a half, almost 2 years, before I got expelled from school up there for doing what we're talking about now. Yeah.
When we talk about obsessive and compulsive behavior, we're talking about the kind of behavior where we, you mentioned in the beginning that you didn't really realize what you were doing. You thought it might have looked cool, made you look responsible. What was the next drug that you picked up?
Oddly enough, it was a prescription medication before the marijuana and the alcohol, but it kind of went, you know, hand in hand, probably all around the same time, because, like I said, I felt, you know, that I was having a handle on things. I thought that's what people did. You know, I thought that's how you handled things. You know, so that's what I did. Not realizing that it was a problem, and not realizing that the problem wasn't necessarily the substances, it was me, and me turning to the substances, which created a problem in my life. You know, because there's people in school that didn't use drugs. There's people in life that didn't use drugs. You know, I was the one that sought out the drugs and picked up the substances and looked for a solution. and looked for a solution for things that I couldn't change with things outside of myself. Totally not realizing the fact that I was ignoring the very thing that I could change, which was my perception and my choice. And it led to a lot of problems in my life.
There may be someone in the radio listening audience who is 13, 14 years of age, and they are living with an individual who smokes cigarettes. They're living with persons who may be using a drink or marijuana. What could you say to them to help them so that they would not have to reach the pain and the misery that you received? How can that possibly? What could you possibly say to them?
For me, one of the most invaluable things that correlate with that, Dr. Jordan, that I've learned in my recoveries, if I would have only known to be more candid about my issues when I was growing up, if I would have only known to reach out and talk to someone, if I would have only known that did not make me look weak, but that was actually how things get solved. Because I learned as people, we're not necessarily isolated, individuals. We work, we flourish and thrive when we work with each other. And, I feel that my inability to realize that led to me trying to handle things myself, which I picked up cigarettes, I picked up drugs, I turned to ways and means that I felt necessary.
Okay. I asked you that question before I initiated a discussion on how you hit bottom or what happened to you that you got into recovery, because I believe that as we are here in St. Petersburg and also in Baltimore trying to give persons hope who suffer from the disease of addiction, I honestly and truly believe that the cure is more important than the problem, and also that my daddy used to say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. And so when we say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, I mean to say that it's I believe it's wisdom to know what to do to prevent an accident, or to prevent going to jail, or to prevent a stroke, or to prevent being arrested, than it is hindsight. They always say hindsight is 20/20. That's the reason why I asked you that question, and I believe that your answer is very powerful, very poignant, when you said that if you had known to be more candid about your issues. What type of issues does a 13, 14-year-old have?
The issues that I had would seem very minuscule on a I guess a bigger picture point of view, I guess for lack of better terms. But the issues I would have was issues that were serious to me at the time, which would be, fitting in school, having nice things, arguments between, the people I looked up to in my household.
Were you raised by your mom and dad?
I was raised. It was kind of a I was raised by my mom mostly. My stepdad at the time worked all the time. My real dad, I didn't see him until I was about the age of 8 because he had gotten in trouble and went to prison. But I ended up starting to build a relationship with him at the age of 8. But my mom, I found out that she would, smoke pot and stuff like that.
How old were you when you found out that your mom smoked marijuana?
Oh, I was real young, probably like 8 or 9.
Did you ever smoke with your mom?
No, not that happened way later on.
So obviously she didn't make an attempt, or maybe she did make an attempt to hide it from you. But if you knew that she was smoking pot and you were 8 years of age, I think that somehow or other there was some incongruency. There was some dysfunction in your household.
Yeah, there was. It was dysfunctional. I think, like, when I was talking about, solving problems by using and stuff like that, I see it now that I was trying to solve problems by using, but my mind, see, they call the disease of addiction insidious, and I think that rings true for my situation because I understand now that it was a problem I was trying to cover up, but back then, my mind made it seem like that was casual, That's what would get you, you're hanging out. You'd be the person that everyone looked up to, the role model. And that's just how insidious this disease is, and it's in my mind. So that's why I have to be candid about my issues, because if not, I'll be looking into the problem for the solution. I read a book one time, I can't remember the author, but it says the arsonist is the chief of police when you're talking about this addiction. You can't possibly expect the fires to be solved if the person that's trying to solve them is starting them. And that's how the disease of addiction works in my mind.
Say it again.
The arsonist is the chief of police.
Okay. And you said, what did you say about starting the fires?
Starting the fire. Like, if you're trying to solve a whole bunch of arsons that have been going on, all right, and the person that's in charge of solving the arsons
is the one
that's
starting the
fire.
That's right.
And that's how my mind is. My mind will start all these fires, and I'll try to solve it by looking into my mind. When that's impossible for me, I must reach out, and be candid about my problems. And what associates with that, for me to be able to recover and have a quality of life second to none today, that perception also goes with the belief in not only that perception, but in something better, something bigger, something bigger than myself, And the reason I say belief and not knowing is because I can know whatever I want, but knowledge and intellect is of the mind. My disease is also of the mind. Knowing helps, but I have to believe in something in my heart, and I have to keep a connection with that belief, because that's the only way that I can keep from being enslaved by my emotions, thoughts, and feelings, is to be convicted in that belief, strong enough to where when I feel or think a certain way, I don't go with it, but I go with the belief. And I go with a set of principles that have been laid out outside of myself. But I have to be strong in that belief. And my best way to keep in connection with that belief is by giving back.
You're talking recovery. You're talking spirituality. You're talking program. You're talking guidance right now. But that's not what you were talking prior to you getting into recovery. Is that right?
That's right.
How or what happened that got you into recovery?
See, I wasn't looking for recovery when I found it. I had gotten in trouble. There's a cliche saying that goes, the nudge from the judge. That happened to me. I got the nudge from the judge. My addiction and my behavior and my want to change things that I couldn't change had landed me in not only one bad situation, but in a whole bunch of bad situations regarding the law. Prior to the one situation where I found recovery, I found myself in a treatment program, and I went there and tried to do things my way. Of course, I had gotten clean prior to this treatment program, but I thought that, I could still sell drugs or and things like that as long as I wasn't using, I was clean. But I later found out that the whole lifestyle is an addiction, and when I finally got in trouble and wound up in this program, I found myself sitting there.
When you say you got in trouble, how do you mean you got in trouble?
What charge? I got in trouble with the law. This one was dealing in stolen property, 7 counts, because I was trying to support my addiction.
How old were you?
I was 20. I just turned 22.
22. So you were supporting your habit by stealing?
I was doing a bunch of things. I had just gotten caught.
Okay. We don't want to talk too much about it because there might be some police right listening. But anyhow, you were using which drug at this time? Your drug of choice?
Prescription pain medication, oxycodone.
Okay. Oxycodone is a very popular drug in this area. Isn't that right?
That's right. It's on epidemic proportions.
Yes. And so you were arrested?
Oh, yeah.
Did you go to court, and did the judge remand you to treatment?
Well, I sat. They wanted worse for me, actually. In the beginning, I had to sit in jail for the better part of 8 months while the charges got lowered down, so my points got lowered so I could get into a treatment facility. The state did a whole lot for me. They bent over backwards, and the state at the time were they were against me. They were the man. They were trying to keep me down. But they're the same people that I respect and really thank for my recovery today.
So after you got out of jail, you began to seek recovery. How?
Well, I went straight from jail to the treatment. It was a level 2 in-house treatment. I wasn't allowed to leave or anything. And when I got there, the guy told me, you know, you stay around long enough, you're going to trip and fall and land on some recovery. Because I wasn't looking for it, man. Honestly, early on in the beginning, I wanted to get